All right, everyone, Beijing Biden is definitely dead weight on the Democratic Party at this point. What people don't understand, this has been lost because of the democratized post-national nature of the internet mainly in political discourse. What people don't realize is that in the United States system, representatives, state representatives, and senators are not meant to represent a national party apparatus. This is why the Democrats keep bitching and moaning about Joe Manchin not wanting the filibuster. His constituents are West Virginia. West Virginians don't want the filibuster to go away. They want a balanced government. Most of them lean to the right. If anything, Joe Manchin is paid by the people that he actually represents not to be a standard California, New York-style Democrat. But that's lost in the nuance of today's civic speech online. What happens is, 20 years ago, what would happen is that if something happened and CNN or Fox didn't report on it, you didn't know it happened. And certainly, even if you did, man, you're on some IRC group or something long ago, and you discover that it has happened, how many people do you really spread it to, and how fast does the information spread? It's faster than like newsprint or something, but it's still, it's sluggish. It's dinosaur mode compared to even early wave social media, a la the birth of things like Twitter and Facebook way back in the 2000s, let alone today where everyone carries a computer 24/7. It's completely different than even 15 years ago when, by and large, if you're interacting with online content, you were sitting down at a desktop or a laptop. That was how it was done. So for the majority of the day, you weren't at a computer, unless your job was IT or something like that. Now, everyone carries it. Even at work, they're sitting there on Twitter, which they should get fired for, but, you know, I suppose it works for most people, and most managers aren't paid enough to give a fucking shit, so it doesn't matter. Biden, though, is, I think, the biggest drag on the party. And what's happened is he's alienating certain groups of Democrats. The idea that he's at 60% approval, by the way, is bullshit. I'm going to be analyzing that on a Substack article tomorrow. A Substack for today is already up. I'm already outlined the one for tomorrow. What's happened is that his immigration proposals, which is we're going to legalize everyone, throw the border open, triple the number of asylum seekers, he's literally planning that. That's fine for AOC. That's fine for Feinstein. That's fine for people in sheltered states that aren't near the border or that are like massively left-leaning. But imagine that you're in swing state Arizona, like Cinema or something, or imagine you're in New Mexico that Biden is already hazarding, by the way, for his party based on his attacks on the energy sector, let alone the border crisis. It doesn't go over so well. Imagine that you're a representative or a senator from Arizona, New Mexico, Texas or something. You're Democrat. And all of a sudden, instead of getting a couple emails a week about, hey, you know, we should fix the border, all of a sudden you're getting a couple thousand emails in a single day. Well, then you call up D.C. and you're like, what the fuck is happening here? You know, I'm going to get kicked out of my job and the Republicans are going to take my seat if you don't do something. And by the way, we've had a mini paradigm shift here where people, both left and right, have stopped playing the old game, which was during the election. The politicians would promise all sorts of things, and they'd move to the right or move to the left. Promise things to the fringe of the party or whatever. They get elected, they do none of it. Like Obama. He never closed Gitmo, shovel-ready wasn't shovel-ready. He basically is well known for throwing hundreds of billions to corporations and banks. People have gotten tired of that. Again, because of the democratized and widespread nature of information being available online, people on the left now expect the politicians to actually be leftists, not just snap back to centrist neoliberalism. People on the right expect populism. They expect libertarian rhetoric. They don't expect the Republican to get elected and then just say, well, I'm going to go visit the Wailing Wall and then spend the next couple of years getting a salary. They expect them to actually do their job. You've got more accountability now. And it's post-nationalistic accountability. You have people in other countries weighing in on U.S. policy. You got Americans weighing in on other policies. To the point where if the person is like, if a Russian weighs in on U.S. policy, it's called election interference. If they're British, then it's okay and it's just their opinion. It's very interesting how the lemmings have broken people. But like, it's funny because like the left-wingers break people apart according to race and national origin and creed and all these things much, much more than right-wingers do. I've noticed they're actually the bigoted ones. I hate to say the Dems are real racist trope, but it's becoming true. And maybe it wasn't true 10 years ago, in a roundabout way, possibly, kinda. Now it's getting towards the realm of reality. Should probably trouble some people who are genuinely leftist. They're going after the dude from The Who, they're going after fucking Metallica and shit now. Trying to cancel everybody in music that actually has a spine or a set of balls. Anyway, Joe Biden, part of the problem is that he can't glue the party together. We should probably explain this too. When Trump arose, there was a schism in the Republican Party, the Never-Trumpers. But because he's charismatic, because he's bombastic and he bounces around stage and makes goofy tweets and stuff, he was able to glue the party together, partially with humor. Biden can't. He's a mumbling, bumbling dementia patient. Well, he doesn't have the specific skill set necessary to actually glue the schismatic Democratic Party together, which means he can't really do anything for these local or state level Democrats that right now are breathing down his neck because especially of his immigration policies. The same follows through for his so-called infrastructure bill, which has nothing to do with infrastructure by and large. Well, the state's COVID response, one state and the other state are totally different. They're all over the place. One state's still fairly locked down, another state has no mask mandate, no restrictions, and everyone's gone back to normal. How do you reconcile the two when you're trying to pitch a multi-trillion-dollar so-called infrastructure deal partially related to a COVID response? Well, I mean, if I'm in a state where people have gotten tired of restrictions, things are open back up, they're going fine, there's no mass, people, there aren't like piles of body bags and corpse carts or anything. My constituents probably are more reluctant to support the idea of spending a lot of our taxpayer money on something that's going to benefit a bunch of other states that are still locked down. It's not necessary. He's talking about universal pre-K, and then, of course, doesn't tell people that that means higher taxes. He's getting flack right now from the left wing, of all things. Bernie Sanders, actually, I agree with him for once. He opposes the restoration of the limitless SALT deduction. Now, I wouldn't have a problem with that if taxes in general were going down. Okay, you're just slashing taxes Republican style. That's perfectly fine. Go ahead and restore it. One of the things that didn't make huge sense, actually, with Trump's tax reform. But if you're raising taxes for most people and just giving a kickback to billionaires, which is what effectively that does, that makes a lot of sense. So people in the 1% get to write off more if they're in a high tax state, aka a blue state. It's funny because I would think Bernie Sanders would be for that. Where do you think his money comes from? Grassroots. You do realize that slush funds exist, correct? Just so we're aware, the left-wingers are fond of getting money from corporatists. They just make sure that it's hidden. They make sure it's not in direct donations because they don't directly solicit it. It's all a dog and pony show. But dead weight, my goodness, the Democratic Party has some real problems. To the point where you have to have push polling by the MSM to try to support Beijing Biden. He's at 60% approval. Yes, okay, his approval is considerably higher than the proportion of people that supported him in the election. That makes a lot of sense. Why? Because of supposedly a popular COVID response. Again, the polling's all over the place. COVID response, Jesus Christ, it's led by the states anyway. The federal government can neither do a good nor bad job on the COVID response. Trump only got flack for it because the MSM ignored that fact and propagandized 24/7. I would speculate at the current trajectory, assuming that nothing else changes. If we continue having a border crisis, which I think we will, economic problems, at least stagnation, unemployment ticking up, jobs report way below the expected, the Biden economy finally kicking in, I suppose, foreign policy problems, Korea, Israel, Palestine. The U.S. government is gravely concerned about the fact that bottle rockets are being intercepted by $70,000 a pop Iron Dome rounds. It's interesting how much it costs to protect nothing really, because half those rockets don't even have a warhead in them. It's interesting looking at all the problems that are culminating. And if they continue to be there and potentially get worse, as I think probably happens, especially in Afghanistan, even without MSM reporting on it, which they won't, they'll protect Biden and circle the wagons till their death, basically. I would assume that by the midterms, it's going to drag the party down. And the problem is, well, it's not really a problem. I mean, for me, it's a good thing, because if the Democrats crash and burn in the midterms, Pelosi's out, Schumer's out and stuff, I think it would be a good thing, because then without the old party structure being there, newcomers can reform it. That might be far left. It might be business Dems. It might be Neolib 2.0. But whatever it is, at the very least, there will be some fresh blood in there. The average age of a senator will drop from 67 to 66. There'll be spring chickens at that point. Chuck Schumer, he'll have to go and he'll live with Nancy Pelosi, and she can put him on a leash naked and walk him around like a dog, like she does in the halls of Congress. That's about all. Peace out.